Good morning. Russia launched a massive attack on Kyiv overnight. Multiple dead, more injured, in what officials are calling a major escalation. I'm Rimo, and this is the Daily Signal for August 28th, 2025. Stay tuned for the rest of the stories.
Unfiltered. Now,
Here are the other top stories for August 28th, 2025. François Bayrou warns France's very survival is now at stake amid rising internal chaos. Trump secretly meets Tony Blair and Jared Kushner to draft new Gaza policy behind closed doors. European ministers trigger nuclear sanctions against Iran, effective this Thursday. Germany just passed emergency military service legislation preparing for possible war conscription. European leaders rush emergency aid to Moldova as Russia intensifies destabilization campaign. Shocking UN vote. Every Security Council member except the US declares Gaza famine a man-made crisis. Argentina hunts Nazi-looted paintings spotted in online ad, worth millions. Massive Israeli protests explode as hostage families turn against Netanyahu government. Breaking investigation reveals US contractors tracked journalist before his killing in Gaza. Now, let's dive into each story. Breaking overnight. Russia unleashed what Ukrainian officials are calling a massive assault on Kyiv. Multiple civilians are confirmed dead, with dozens more injured in the largest single attack on the capital in weeks. Here's what happened. Russian forces targeted civilian infrastructure across multiple districts. Emergency services are still responding to several strike locations. Ukrainian President Zelensky condemned the attack as a stark violation of sovereignty and called for immediate Western response. This matters because it represents a significant escalation, just as international diplomatic efforts were showing signs of progress. NATO allies are now under pressure to respond more forcefully. Meanwhile, in France, François Bayrou just issued a shocking warning. France's survival as a nation is at stake. The prominent politician didn't mince words, citing rising social tensions, economic uncertainty, and what he calls unprecedented geopolitical pressures. Here's the key detail. Bayrou specifically mentioned threats from Ukraine war spillover effects and instability spreading from Africa. His statement triggered immediate political debates over national unity and emergency defense reforms. You'll want to remember this. Bayrou's warnings come as France faces its most challenging period since World War II, with critics calling for immediate government action to address internal divisions. Speaking of international pressure, President Trump held a classified meeting with Tony Blair and Jared Kushner focused entirely on Gaza policy. This wasn't announced publicly. We're learning about it now through diplomatic sources. The real story is what they discussed: completely new strategies for handling the humanitarian crisis that could influence current U.S. policy. Blair brought his Middle East expertise, while Kushner contributed knowledge from previous Abraham Accords negotiations. This detail will surprise you. Despite having no official government roles, their recommendations are reportedly being circulated to current policymakers. The meeting signals growing private sector involvement in what should be official diplomatic channels. In related developments, European foreign ministers just informed Senator Marco Rubio they're triggering snapback sanctions against Iran, effective this Thursday, August 28th. These aren't ordinary sanctions. They're nuclear deal provisions designed to immediately reimpose all previous restrictions. Here's what they're not telling you. Iran's been violating nuclear compliance agreements for months, but this coordinated European response suggests intelligence about accelerated weapons development. Oil markets are already reacting with price spikes expected. The critical update: this moves tensions with Iran to the highest level since 2019, with potential impacts on global energy supplies and Middle East stability. Remember this number: oil futures jumped 4% just on the news. On the military front, Germany's government just passed emergency military service legislation that could bring back conscription for the first time since 2011. Defense Minister Boris Pistorius called it essential for national security. Here's the immediate impact. All German school leavers must now undergo military examinations. Men aged 18-25 face mandatory paperwork about military readiness. If volunteer recruitment targets aren't met, full conscription could return within months. This connects to our next story perfectly. Germany's preparing for potential conflict as Russian aggression escalates across Eastern Europe. The bill now heads to the Bundestag, where passage appears certain given current security concerns. Meanwhile, in Eastern Europe, European leaders just announced emergency support packages for Moldova as Russia intensifies what officials call a relentless destabilization campaign. This isn't just financial aid, it includes military advisors and intelligence sharing. The key detail: Moldova's facing coordinated disinformation campaigns, economic pressure, and suspected sabotage operations. European officials fear Moldova could be Russia's next target after Ukraine. You'll want to remember this timeline. Support packages begin immediately with enhanced defense cooperation starting next month. This represents NATO's clearest commitment to defending non-member Eastern European countries. At the United Nations, shocking vote at the UN Security Council. Every member except the United States declared Gaza's famine situation a man-made crisis. This unprecedented isolation of the U.S. signals major diplomatic shifts. Here's what happened. 14 Security Council members officially attributed Gaza's humanitarian disaster to blockades, ongoing conflict, and deliberate obstruction of aid. The U.S. stood completely alone in opposition. This means global pressure on Israel and the U.S. just intensified dramatically. The unified condemnation breaks previous diplomatic patterns and could trigger formal UN intervention procedures. International law experts are calling it a watershed moment. In cultural news with dark history, Argentine authorities launched an urgent search for a painting looted by Nazi fugitives after it appeared in an online advertisement. Yet the artwork could be worth millions and represents one of thousands of pieces still missing from World War II. The surprising detail: someone unknowingly tried to sell Nazi-stolen art through a regular online marketplace. Authentication experts confirmed the painting's wartime provenance through digital analysis of the advertisement photos. Here's why this matters globally. It demonstrates how much stolen cultural property remains in circulation decades later. If recovered, this represents continued international cooperation on historical justice and could lead to more discoveries. Back in Israel, massive protests erupted across Israel as hostage families dramatically turned against Prime Minister Netanyahu's government. Thousands demanded immediate action to secure prisoner releases, creating the largest political crisis of Netanyahu's current term. The real story is the deepening divide. Protesters accuse Netanyahu of prioritizing political survival over hostage lives. Some families publicly called for his resignation, breaking traditional unity during security crises. This detail changes everything. The protests now include former military leaders and intelligence officials, adding unprecedented weight to demands for new leadership. Netanyahu's coalition faces its most serious threat yet. Our final breaking story reveals U.S. contractors in Gaza actively pursued a Middle East Eye journalist before his killing. Investigation details show deliberate tracking and surveillance that raises serious questions about contractor accountability in war zones. Here's the pattern emerging from today's stories. We're witnessing unprecedented global tension across multiple fronts. From Russia's escalating attacks to Iran sanctions, Germany's military preparations, and U.S. diplomatic isolation at the UN, these aren't separate incidents. The connection you need to understand every story today reflects the breakdown of post-Cold War international order. Traditional alliances are fracturing, new military preparations accelerate, and humanitarian crises multiply while diplomatic solutions fail. This affects your daily life through energy prices, global economic stability, and potential military commitments. The decisions made in capitals worldwide this week will determine whether we're heading toward wider conflict or can still find peaceful resolutions. Today's stories reveal a world at multiple tipping points, from battlefields in Ukraine to political upheaval in Israel, from Iranian nuclear tensions to Nazi art discoveries spanning centuries of injustice. Remember the key theme: international systems built over decades are being tested like never before. Stay informed, stay engaged, because these global shifts will reshape the world your children inherit. I'm Remo with the Daily Signal. Subscribe for tomorrow's essential updates. Share this with someone who needs to stay informed, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning. Stay safe out there.
Unfiltered.